I'm campaigning for mayor of Sioux Falls. And I figure that, when I am mayor, the city and the county will have to work together, and I don't want there to be a whole lot of surprises. So I'm presenting today on something that I feel is important to the city and the county, but it's a long discourse, so this is part 1 of 3. Drug prohibition. Let's see if a page down works on this.
Down arrow.
This down arrow. All right. Now, in the popular press, it's popularly called the war on drugs, but I think that the term drug prohibition is more accurate and more scientific. And when you can switch from rhetoric to science, well, then you might actually be able to accomplish something. So in my presentation, I call this drug prohibition and not so much the war on drugs. Now, I've got this long hair and I'm talking about drug prohibition, so I want people to know that I'm an athletic, healthy, meditative guy, and I don't do any of this kind of garbage. I don't do drugs. I hardly ever take aspirin, and I do believe that we should have policies based on science and evidence and fact and not fear. Now, when you look at papers and news media, there's reports that, drug abuse is growing. It's a terrible problem. It causes crime. And methamphetamine is supposed to be particularly nasty, and we really should try to figure out how much of this rhetoric is based on evidence and truth and reality. So I found some statistics from the U.S. Department of Health. And for the most part, drug use is stable or even declining. Little increase in meth use, but if you look at the number of illicit drug users, meth is just a very small part of that. So it's a big emotional issue, but not so much a big practical issue. Marijuana use is growing, and it's amazingly popular. Half of young adults have used marijuana. Half. This is from the U.S. Department of Health, by the way. A few more statistics. About 1/4 of the population is binge alcohol users. That's rather alarming. Since we're talking about drugs, we should mention tobacco. About 1/4 of the population uses tobacco. And if you want to figure out where I found this, there's a citation there. Here's a plot I found. Most drug use is stable or heading down, except for that top part. That's marijuana, heading up a little bit. Methamphetamine use is not plotted because it's too small. It would fall off the chart. You wouldn't see it. Looks like drug use and abuse is all too popular. If half the young adults have used marijuana, we're not doing very well at keeping it off the streets. Apparently, jail-based prohibition doesn't prevent drug use or abuse. If you read the rhetoric about drug prohibition, we're trying to reduce addictions, we're trying to keep people safe. Hopefully it's got a minimal social cost. But the question is, does it really work? Do we achieve the stated goals? And no, we don't. Marijuana use is large and growing. People that try to feed their habit go on crime spree to pay for this stuff. The third bullet is particularly alarming. We've got the world's 2nd highest prison rate. That's just terrible. And then you've got problems with civil rights violations with police that are kind of crazy. And if you look at what parts of society receive enforcement, it's biased heavily towards poor and black people. We're also subsidizing terrorism because opium out, guns in. Not what we want to do. Now, this is kind of a long discourse, and I only have 5 minutes at a time, so that's the end of part 1. But I always end my presentations with a pretty picture, and no matter how bad things are, we should try to look on the sunny side and enjoy life. This is a view out my car as I was driving somewhere between Sioux Falls and Lake Madison. So with that, good morning.